There comes a moment in life when the tables turn between parents and their kids. You dedicate decades to raising them, guiding them, and sacrificing for them. Then, one day, it dawns on you, the whole dynamic has shifted. Maybe they flat out reject your advice, maybe they completely ignore what you think, maybe they talk down to you like you're a little kid, or even worse, they make you feel like you're a burden. And that really hurts, doesn't it? If your kids have started treating you with less respect than you deserve, you're probably feeling frustrated, maybe even downright ticked off. You might be tempted to remind them of everything you've done for them, of all the years you put their needs first. But here's the honest truth. Getting angry isn't going to fix anything. Actually, it often makes things worse. Instead, there's a much better way to get their respect back, without getting into fights, arguments, or holding on to bitterness. Today, I'm going to give you 6 strategies you can use when your children aren't showing you the respect you deserve. These are powerful changes, simple adjustments in how you react that can totally change how they see you. Some of these might surprise you, but if you hang in there until the end, you'll find out how to get back your place as someone respected and valued in their lives. So, let's jump right in and get started. First thing, stop trying to get their approval. One of the biggest mistakes parents make, especially as they get older, is trying too hard to please their kids. Maybe you've even noticed yourself doing it. You go out of your way to make them happy, you say yes when you really want to say no. You put what they need ahead of what you need, all hoping that if you just do enough, they'll finally appreciate you more. But here's the tough truth. The more you try to get their approval, the less respect they'll actually have for you. Real respect isn't earned by constantly sacrificing yourself. It's earned through self-respect. If you're always bending over backward, always giving in, always trying to keep the peace at any cost, what you're really teaching them is that your feelings and your needs are less important than theirs. And once they start thinking that way, it becomes really easy for them to take you for granted. I once knew a woman named Margaret, a strong, independent woman when she was younger. But as she got older, she started letting her kids make all the decisions for her. She changed her whole schedule to fit their needs, kept her opinions to herself because she was afraid of upsetting them, and even ignored the way they sometimes talked down to her. "I just want to keep the family together," she told me once, looking sad. But what happened in the end? Her kids gradually stopped valuing her altogether. They saw her as someone who would always adjust, always agree, always stay quiet, no matter what. She thought she was keeping the peace and keeping things harmonious, but what she was really doing was slowly losing her own voice and sense of self. If your kids don't respect you, the first thing to do isn't to demand their respect or throw a fit. It's to stop acting like you desperately need it from them. Start setting clear boundaries, say no when you need to, and speak your mind, even if they don't necessarily like what you have to say. Because the second you start respecting yourself and standing your ground, they'll start seeing you in a totally different light, and eventually that respect will come back to you. Second thing, don't argue, lead by example. When your kids ignore your opinions, constantly talk over you, or otherwise treat you disrespectfully, your first reaction might be to argue back, to remind them of everything you've done for them over the years, to demand that they finally start listening to you for once. But let me tell you something that will save you years of frustration and heartache. Arguing almost never works. Think about it for a second. When was the last time you convinced someone to respect you by getting into a heated argument with them and fighting for it? Respect usually isn't won with just words. It's earned through how you act, through the way you carry yourself with dignity and grace, and through the way you calmly respond when others try to test you or push your buttons. If you respond to disrespect with anger and aggression, all you're really doing is confirming what they already believe, that they somehow have power over you and can easily control how you feel. I knew a man named Frank, a retired teacher who had spent his whole career leading a classroom full of students with confidence. But at home, his grown children had started treating him like he didn't matter, barely even noticing he was there. They regularly ignored his advice, dismissed his concerns without a second thought, and sometimes even laughed when he tried to correct them on something. At first, he argued back, desperately trying to prove that he still deserved their respect and admiration. But the more he fought and pushed, the worse things seemed to get between them. Then one day, Frank decided to change his approach. Instead of constantly arguing and trying to force the issue, he started listening, really listening, to what his kids had to say. He stopped trying to get their respect with empty words and instead acted like a man who already had it. He spoke calmly and thoughtfully, with wisdom and experience, without feeling like he had to win every argument. And slowly but surely, his kids started to notice the change in him. They saw a man who wasn't desperate for their approval, who didn't feel the need to constantly prove himself to them, who was just a figure of quiet strength and determination. If your kids don't respect you, don't waste your time fighting them for it. Instead, show them what true respect looks like by the way you treat yourself and others. Always be dignified, speak confidently, and most importantly, never lower yourself to their level by getting into petty arguments or acting childish. Because when you hold your ground with grace and composure, they will feel it, and eventually, they'll start to follow your lead. If you're still watching this video and finding these tips helpful, please comment number 2 below so I know you're still engaged. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend you subscribe now and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Your support really helps us keep making good content to inform and inspire you on your personal journey. Now, let's move on to the next thing. Third thing, stop being so emotionally dependent. One of the hardest things to learn as you get older and your kids become adults is that you just can't depend on them for your own emotional happiness and well-being. You might love them a lot and you might really want them to love and respect you back. But the moment they feel like you need them to feel valued, appreciated, or even just okay, the whole relationship dynamic goes downhill. Here's the thing. People, even your own kids, usually respect people who are emotionally independent and self-sufficient. When you constantly rely on them for validation, affection, or attention, it puts a lot of pressure on them to constantly meet your needs. And instead of being grateful to have you in their lives, they often start feeling burdened and suffocated by what you need from them. They might start pulling away from you, they might start getting impatient or even annoyed with you, and the more you try to get their love and approval, the less they seem to give it to you. I once knew a woman named Helen. She was a kind and devoted mother who had given her kids everything she had throughout their lives. As they got older and got busier with their own lives, careers, and families, she found herself constantly waiting by the phone, hoping they would call her. And when they didn't call as often as she wanted, she ended up calling them instead, often way too much for their liking. She constantly told them how much she missed them, and how she wished they would visit her more often. But instead of bringing them closer together, her actions actually pushed them further away. They started seeing her frequent calls as something they had to do, instead of something they actually looked forward to. Then one day, Helen decided to try something completely different. She made a conscious decision to stop waiting around for them to contact her. She stopped being the one to call first all the time. Instead, she started focusing on herself and her own happiness, picking up new hobbies and interests, going out with friends, and just generally taking better care of herself. And something really surprising happened. Her kids actually started calling her more often. They started respecting her time and her boundaries, and they began to see her as someone who had a full and exciting life, instead of just someone who was constantly waiting around for them. The lesson here is simple. The less you depend on your kids to make you feel needed, loved, and valued, the more they will actually start valuing you. When you show them that you can stand strong on your own, and that you don't need them to feel complete, they will start respecting you, not because they feel guilty, but because they actually admire the fulfilling and independent life you've created for yourself. Fourth thing, set boundaries and stick to them. One of the biggest reasons why kids, especially adult kids, sometimes lose respect for their parents is because the parents let them. If you always let your kids talk to you disrespectfully, ignore your opinions, or act like your time and feelings don't matter, they will keep doing it, often without even realizing how it affects you. It's not necessarily because they're bad people, but simply because people, especially family, will usually treat you the way you let them treat you. Setting healthy boundaries doesn't mean cutting off your kids completely or making unnecessary drama. It just means calmly and firmly deciding what kind of behavior you will and won't accept from them, and more importantly, sticking to those boundaries when they're crossed, without making excuses or giving in to their emotional manipulation. I remember a man named Robert, a retired businessman who had always run his company with discipline and confidence. But when it came to his adult kids, he often struggled to stand up for himself and stay in control. They often interrupted him when he was talking, dismissed his concerns, and even openly criticized how he lived his life. At first, he just put up with it, thinking it wasn't worth fighting over every little thing. But eventually, he realized that every time he stayed quiet and let their disrespectful behavior continue, he was teaching them that it was okay and had no consequences. So one day, Robert decided to change his approach. When his son interrupted him, he calmly and firmly said, "I'll be happy to keep talking when you're ready to listen respectfully." When his daughter dismissed his opinion, he simply replied, "You don't have to agree with me, but I do expect you to treat me with respect." And when they kept pushing his limits and ignoring his boundaries, he made it clear that if they couldn't treat him with respect, he wouldn't spend any more time with them until they could. And you know what happened? They actually started listening to him and respecting his wishes. At first, they resisted his efforts to stand up for himself, and they tried to push back against his new boundaries. But eventually, they realized that their father wasn't backing down this time, and that he was serious about demanding the respect he deserved. They saw that he valued himself enough to demand respect from others, and because of that, they slowly started giving it to him. If your kids don't respect you, it's time to really think about whether you're letting them treat you this way. Because if you don't set clear boundaries and stick to them, they won't set them for you. And if you don't stand up for yourself and demand the respect you deserve, no one else will. If you're still watching this video and finding these tips valuable, please comment number 4 below so I know you're still here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us keep making good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move on. Fifth thing. Stop giving without appreciation. One of the fastest ways to lose someone's respect, whether it's your kids or anyone else, is to keep giving to them without ever getting any real appreciation in return. And as parents, we tend to do this way more often than we realize. We freely give our time, our energy, our money, and our emotional support, even when it's not acknowledged, even when it's taken for granted, and even when we're met with nothing but entitlement and a lack of gratitude. But here's the truth. When you keep giving to someone who doesn't appreciate it, you don't actually build love or respect. Instead, you just make them expect it and feel entitled to it. They gradually stop seeing your kindness as something special, and instead start seeing it as something they automatically deserve from you, no matter what. And the moment you finally stop giving or set a boundary, they don't feel grateful or understanding. Instead, they feel inconvenienced and even resentful. I once knew a man named George, a devoted father who had always been really generous with his kids. He helped them financially whenever they needed it, dropped everything to help them with their problems, and even changed his whole life to fit their needs. But instead of getting gratitude in return, he was often met with complaints, demands, and a general sense of entitlement. They rarely said, "Thank you," or acknowledged his sacrifices. Instead, they just expected more and more from him. And the worst part was that when he finally needed their help, they were always too busy or unwilling to help him back. Then one day, George decided to change his behavior. He consciously stopped doing too much for his kids, and he stopped automatically offering help before they even asked. And most importantly, he started saying no when he really needed to prioritize his own needs. At first, his kids were understandably frustrated and confused by the change. They didn't understand why he wasn't doing everything for them anymore, and they initially reacted with anger. But eventually, something remarkable began to change in how they saw him. They slowly started valuing his time more, and they began to appreciate his generosity in a way they never had before. Because suddenly, they realized that his generosity wasn't guaranteed. It was actually a valuable gift that they had to earn through their own actions. If you feel like your kids don't really respect your time, your effort, or your kindness, take a step back and really think about the situation. Ask yourself, am I giving more than I should be, and am I enabling them to feel entitled? And if so, what would happen if I stopped doing too much and started setting some healthy boundaries? Because when you teach people that your generosity depends on their respect, they will start treating it that way. Sixth thing, build a life outside of them. One of the best ways to get your kids' respect back, especially as they become adults, is to show them that your happiness doesn't depend on them. As parents, it's natural to focus on our kids and make them the main focus of our lives, especially when they're young. But as we get older and our kids become more independent, that changes. And if you've spent your whole adult life putting their needs first and ignoring your own, they might start seeing you as someone who has nothing else going on in their life, which can make them lose respect for you. People usually respect those who have their own purpose, their own interests, and their own strong sense of fulfillment, no matter their relationships with others. And if your kids see that you constantly rely on them for entertainment, validation, or a sense of purpose, they might start feeling suffocated by what you need from them, or worse, they might start seeing you as someone who has no life outside of them. I knew a woman named Eleanor, a kind widow in her late 70s. After her husband passed away, she put all of her time and energy into her kids' lives, constantly checking in on them, giving them advice they didn't ask for, and generally expecting them to fill the emotional void that her husband had left behind. But instead of bringing them closer, her actions actually pushed them further away. They visited her less often, their phone calls got shorter, and Eleanor felt more alone than ever before. Then one day she decided to change her approach. She joined a book club, started traveling with her friends, and volunteered at a local community center. She stopped making her kids the center of her world, and instead focused on building a fulfilling life for herself, no matter their needs. And something incredible happened. Her kids actually started reaching out to her more often. They were curious about what she was doing, they admired her independence, and they started respecting her in a way they hadn't before. If your kids don't respect you, ask yourself honestly. Do they see you as someone with a full, meaningful life? Or do they see you as someone who is just waiting around for their attention? Because when you show them that you are living your life to the fullest, they will start seeing you differently. If you're still watching this video and finding these tips valuable, please comment number 6 below so I know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us keep making good content to inform and inspire you. Finally, respect isn't something you can just demand from your kids, no matter how much you want it. It's something you inspire by how you act, how you set boundaries, and how you live your life with purpose. If your kids have started treating you with less care, less consideration, or less respect than you deserve, don't waste your energy getting angry. Instead, change your approach and focus on what you can control. Stop trying to get their approval because the less you need it, the more they'll give it to you. Lead by example because your actions speak louder than words. Stop being so emotionally dependent because the more independent you are, the more they'll respect you. Set clear boundaries and stick to them, because people will only treat you as well as you require them to. Stop giving without appreciation, because when generosity is taken for granted, it becomes a source of resentment. And most importantly, build a fulfilling life outside of them, because people respect those who have their own purpose. If you do these things, something incredible will happen. Your kids will start seeing you differently, not as someone who is waiting around for their attention, but as someone who commands respect just by being themselves. And eventually, that respect will come back to you not because you forced it, but because you earned it. Thank you for joining us today and watching this video. We'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it to improve your relationships with your children. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them in the comments. Reading your comments motivates us to keep creating valuable content for you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. Your support helps us keep creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.